Hello teachers, learners, and parents. Sir Jeff po, at your service. Alam nyo ba na meron tayong website na tinatawag na DepEd Commons? Ang DepEd Commons ay binuo upang gawing accessible ang pagtuturo at pag-aaral dito sa ating bansa gamit lamang ang inyong mga smart devices gaya ng cellphones, tablets, at computers. Dito ay maaari nating ma-access ang iba't ibang learning materials mula sa Department of Education. Meron itong mga interactive materials, electronic self-learning modules, at instructional video lessons mula sa DepEd TV na tiyak na makatutulong sa pag-aaral ng mga mag-aaral galing ka man sa public o private school. Walang problema dahil welcome ang lahat dito. Para ito sa mga guro, magulang at mga mag-aaral mula sa kinder hanggang grade 12, alternative learning system o ALS, at pati na rin ang special education. At huwag kang mag-alala dahil kahit walang load ay maaari mong ma-access ang mga learning materials. Tama! Libre ito. Ang kailangan mo lamang gawin ay i-on ang iyong data at buksan lamang ang iyong browser at i-type ang commons.deped.gov.ph. Alam na ba ng iyong mga kasamahang guro o mag-aral ang tungkol sa DepEd Commons? I-share mo na ang video na ito upang matuto rin sila kung paano gagamitin ang DepEd Commons sa mabilis at napakadaling paraan. Muli, ito po si Sir Jeff at kita-kits po tayo sa DepEd Commons. Paalam!
Magandang araw! Sir Wilbur po, at your service. Narito ang ETUlay upang gabayan ka sa inyong pag-aaral upang lubos na maunawaan ang iba't ibang paksa o subject. Ang ETUlay ay isang free online tutorial class na pinangungunahan ng DepEd Educational Technology Unit sa pamumuno ni Undersecretary Elaine Del B. Pascua. Ang programang ito ay hindi lamang para sa mga bata, kundi ito rin ay magsisilbing gabay sa mga magulang at mga guro kung paano nila ituturo o gagabayan sa bawat asignatura ang kanilang mga anak o mga estudyante. Sa kasalukuyan, ang self-learning module mula sa rehiyon ng Calabarzon at kilala sa tawag na pivot ang ginagamit sa ating ETUlay online class. Kaya ano pang hinihintay ninyo? Ihanda na ang inyong mga ballpen o lapis, papel o kwaderno at samahan kaming itulay ang pagkatuto para sa bawat batang Pilipino. Sama-sama tayong magtutulungan para malampasan ang mga hamon sa panahong ito. Halina't matuto kasama ang inyong online tutor sa oras na ito.
Alright, so good afternoon po sa ating lahat. Happy Monday. So I hope you're starting your week right. So you made the right choice, sabi ko nga. Every time you attend our DepEd online, ETUlay online tutorial. So for this session, we are having the Senior High School Earth and Life Science. So we are now on quarter 4, week 2. At ang pinaka-target po natin for this particular session or episode is the unifying themes in the study of life. Okay? So, sa mga loyal. Mga usual viewers po natin sa ETUlay, so kilala niyo na po ako. So, my name is Tutor Tony or Sir Tony. Sa mga hindi pa po, ayan po. So, welcome po sa ating session. So, ang Earth and Life Science po ay tuwing Monday, 4 o'clock to 4:40. And we are broadcasting live sa DepEd Edtech Unit Facebook page at sa official DepEd TV YouTube channel. So, might as well share nyo po ang ating mga links ng live stream para marami pa po ang maabot ng ating mga ETUlay online tutorial sessions. Ayan, so as I have mentioned, we are now on quarter 4, week 2, and we'll be using the module provided by Region 4A Calabarzon. Specifically for this session, we'll be using module number 22. Wow, nasa number 22 module na tayo. Unifying themes in the study of biology. So I hope you are all set. Are you all ready, class? Ayan, so pag gawa tayo ng ingay sa comment section later on as we interact with each other sa mga questions po natin. Of course, aside from that, kailangan nyo na, or if you have your pen and paper with you para makapag-note down kayo, or if you're techie, pwede kayong mag-screenshot ng mga concepts or mga lectures natin later on. Or might as well, pwede nyo balikan itong replay ng ating session sa DepEd Edtech Unit Facebook page at saka sa YouTube channel ng DepEd TV. Ayan, so makakatulong din kung if you have your modules with you. Of course, ang lagi kong sinasabi sa aking mga learners, presence of mind and presence of heart. And most importantly, para makapag-interact kayo kay Tutor Tony, kailangan yung mag-comment sa comment box natin dyan or comment section. So might as well, pwede kayong magpabati, mga short greetings. Mamaya kapag may mga questions tayo or if you want to answer the activities, ayan. So I encourage everyone to comment your answers, your greetings, your shout-outs, and don't forget to include kung anong school kayo, anong grade level kayo, at saka anong division. Let's say, for example, taga Pangasinan ba kayo, taga Sarangani, ayan. So sana well-represented ulit ang buong Pilipinas, Metro Manila, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. On our previous session, I actually shown this already, no? So last May 22, 2021, ito lang yan, last Saturday, I think, we celebrated the International Day of Biological Diversity. Ayan, yung pagkakaiba-iba ng mga living things sa planet Earth and paano tayo nag-interact with each other. So swak na swak yan sa ating discussions for this session. So the theme for this year is we are part of the solution. #4nature. And sabi nga dyan sa campaign na yan or sa advocacy na yan, we can find nature-based solutions sa mga kinakaharap natin ng mga issues like climate change, yan, health issues, food and water security, di ba? So sa iba't ibang parte ng mundo, naging problema yan. And of course, sa sustainable livelihood. So makakapag-provide ng foundation and at the same time, solution ang tinatawag natin na biological diversity. So salamat na lamang sa ating Mother Nature for providing us all the needs that we want. Okay? So nasa sa atin lang mga tao kung paano natin siya gagamitin ng tama. Alright, so that is again International Day for Biological Diversity. So huwag mahiyang mag-comment sa ating mga comment sections, just like sa mga early commentators natin like Alzain Aziz, hello po, Akihiro, Julieta, and Shona Andus, Bio. Ayan, so good afternoon. So ayan, so let's proceed with our session objectives. So meron na tayong isa for this particular session. We have to describe how unifying themes, specifically structure and function, ayan, ma-encounter natin yan, evolution and ecosystems, in the study of life, show, ayan, very critical tong word natin na to later on. So we have the words connections among living things. So paano nga ba tayo related or paano tayo nagiging connected sa ibang organismo? So hindi lang naman tayo related sa mga kapwa natin humans, we also interact with other living organisms, mga simple organisms man yan, or mga plants or other lower forms of animals. Ayan. And how they interact with each other and of course with their environment. Ayan. So we are talking about unity, diversity, and connectedness this afternoon. Ayan. So sobrang nakaka-excite ang ating mga topics. But before that, let's have a quick review first. So last week, we started our Q4. Week 1 na tayo last week. So I introduced to you what is life science. And I have mentioned that it is a collection of different disciplines or mga fields that is made up of theories and principles that discusses the structure and function of living things, starting from the molecular level up to the entire ecosystems. And also, we reviewed the different or the major branches of biology. Can you still remember? Ayan, study of animals is called, ayan, zoology. Study of plants is called botany. And study of microorganisms is what we call microbiology. Of course, sa bawat major branches na may mga sub-branches pa. And of course, ang highlight ng ating discussion last week is the evolving concept of life based on emerging pieces of evidence. So yung mga discussions na we talk about sa previous na quarter, which ang focus is yung earth science, ayan, magagamit natin siya, mako-connect natin siya sa mga topics natin sa life science. So specifically, ang highlight ng ating mga pieces of evidence that support the concept of life are the following. So we have the fossil records. We also have the layers of rocks. And finally, the different geologic processes na nangyayari sa surface ng Earth. All of these pieces of evidence tell us or give us a clue about the evolving. Paano ba nag-emerge, paano ba nag-evolve yung life sa planetang Earth. And we also discuss the different characteristics of life. Mabilis ang our review. So living things, including us, we respond to our environment, we grow and develop, we are capable of reproduction, we exhibit metabolism. Of course, we can maintain homeostasis or yung internal regulatory mechanism ng katawan natin. And we are made up of cells, our basic unit. Ayan. So for this afternoon, our discussion will primarily be focusing on the different unifying themes in biology. So ano ba yung sinasabi ni Tutor Tony or ni Sir Tony na unifying themes? So from the word unify, unity. When we say themes, we have a commonality. Ano yung common sa mga living things just like us? Okay? So the field of science deals with the study of life is what we call, of course, biology or life science. It involves different disciplines, and these disciplines are connected to one another, through which biologists biologists use the term unifying theme. Okay, so we have a list here. So we have 10. Okay, so medyo madami-dami, pero I'll make this light and chill lang for everybody. Ayan, so first one is biological system. Next one is cell. Followed by interaction with the environment. Ayan, di ba? Mga unifying themes talaga ang datingan. So we have energy and life, form and function, reproduction and inheritance, regulation, adaptation, evolution, and finally, syempre, magiging useless yung pag-aaral natin ng biology or ng life science if we will not apply the concepts that we will be learning. So that brings us to the last theme, which is biology and society. So good afternoon po sa mga bagong tune in lang. So we are having the tutorial for senior high school Earth and Life Science. So you can comment po para may attendance po tayo. You can have your attendance on our comment box para ma-acknowledge ko kayo later on. All right, so let's begin. So first one is, ang first unifying theme is of course biological system. So ang keyword natin dito is system. So ano ba yung system? So living things work as a system. Pag sinabi natin may sistema, organisado siya, di ba? Hindi siya magulo. Kumbaga may organization siya, particular level of structure. Pero at the same time, sabi dyan, living things work as a system. At the same time, they cannot be separated from non-living things. Di ba? So some of us think na pwede tayong mabuhay na tayo lang, mga living things. Pero actually, no. So we are actually depending on other elements or other factors yun nga, sa environment, mga abiotic factors or the non-living factors para tayo ay makapag-survive. Alright? Let's define the word system. Ayan, a system is an organized group. Ayan, organized group of interacting parts. Parang sa classroom, di ba? May organization or sa mga schools. Of course, we have learned that a cell is a system of chemicals and processes. It is the basic unit of life. So we have here on the diagram, ayan, so some example, I have already introduced you the terms prokaryotic at saka eukaryotic, di ba? So we are made up of eukaryotic cells. Pinapakita dito yung prokaryotic cell. Ang best example, of course, are the bacteria. And of course, yung mas advanced or mas complex in terms of the structure kasi may mga organelles na at saka definite na yung mga yung mga little organs or organelles, we have the eukaryotic cell. Next, a body system includes organs that interact. On a larger view naman, so I'll give you one example, of course. So this system is called ang pinaka-primary organ niya is the lungs. Ayan, we have the respiratory system. At ang lungs naman, hindi siya makapag-perform ng function niya to supply the body's oxygen level kung wala yung mga ibang parts. So kailangan niya ng nose, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, the alveoli, ayan, the diaphragm, of course, ayan. So they work as a team. Baga, may teamwork dyan. So each organ work as a team and ibig sabihin, kailangan nilang isa't isa para makapag-perform nila to the maximum level ang kanilang specific function. We also have the term ecosystem. Ecosystem includes living and non-living things that interact. So we have already discussed that one. So shown in the presentation is an example of, ayan, are you familiar with that? Bakawan. Ayan, bakawan or the mangrove. So they serve as a shelter sa ating mga living things. Ayan, so it's an ecosystem because there's an interaction or the interplay of the different living things and non-living things. So kita naman yung mga living things dyan like the sea creatures dyan, mga water creatures, the birds as well, of course, the mangroves themselves, and yung mga non-living factors. So we have temperature, sunlight, humidity, ayan, salinity ng water, and all the other factors. So ito yung mga examples natin ng tinatawag na magpo-fall sa ating first unifying theme, which is what we call the biological system. Lahat ay organized, lahat ay connected with each other. Ayan, we have the next unifying theme. Ayan, so cell. So we have already mentioned that this one earlier. Cells are the basic unit of life. So kung ikaw ay living organism, of course, you are made up of cells, which denotes that all living things are composed of cells. May variety nga lang, no? So last time we discussed about prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So sino yung mga prokaryotes, class? So these are the single-celled organisms, specifically, or they are dominated by the bacteria. Ayan. And of course, the archaea or yung mga ancestors nila, yung mga primitive na bacteria. So sino naman yung mga tinatawag na eukaryotes? So definite ang structure ng nucleus, which contains the DNA or the genetic material plus the organelles. So kasama tayo dun sa mga eukaryotic organisms. So we have the animals, the plants, the fungi, and the protists. Ayun po. So that's number 2. The second unifying theme, cell. So we are all made up of cells. So let's proceed to the third unifying theme. Ayan. So I like the word. So we have here interaction with the environment. All right. So, sabi nga nila, di ba, no man is an island. So, we cannot live alone. Living things cannot live alone. Our survival depends on how we interact with the environment. So, do we choose to survive ba? Do we choose to be alone? Of course, syempre ma-advise ko sa'yo, you need to socialize or you need to interact with each other para makasurvive ka na or mapanatili mo yung yung race mo or yung specific species mo, di ba? Organisms, yan, including us, of course, have evolved to live and interact with other organisms. So, specific discipline sa biology, ang tawag ay ecology. Ecology deals with the interactions of living organisms with one another and their environment. So, ano bang picture na i-relate ko dito? Ayan. So, we have here the soil, of course. Kahit lupa yan. We have learned from our previous quarter that plays a vital role para makasurvive din ang mga living organisms, primarily the plants. And of course, the plants are very important para mag-survive din ang mga other living organisms, especially yung mga nakadepend sa oxygen na pinoproduce nila, just like us humans and other forms of animals. Ayan din. Ayan, sana maging wag tayo maging harsh kay Mother Nature or sa pag-i-interact natin. Yes, we can cut down trees for to be used for practical purposes, 'di ba? Pero we are reminded na every time we cut trees, dapat pinapalitan natin siya ng another seedling, 'di ba? Or another plant for a particular tree na kinakat natin para at least ma-maintain pa rin o hindi man ma-maintain, at least mahabol na yung balance state ng mga trees, especially sa mga forest na dedenude na or konti na lang yung mga trees. So that's number 3, interaction with the environment. Yeah, so good afternoon sa ating mga bagong viewers. We have Maria Tenzi Parcasio watching from Mindanao. From Mariano Peralta National High School, Division of Davao Occidental. I hope you are all great dyan sa Davao. So dito sa Metro Manila, grabe yung ulan recently. Tsaka yung mga thunder. Ayan. So I hope you're all safe. And we also have Marilyn Antolin. Good afternoon po. Ayan. The next unifying theme is what we call energy in life. Of course, living things need energy para ma-perform natin yung mga bodily functions natin. Tayo ba or kayo ba, ano ba yung pinaka-primary source ng energy ninyo? Of course, you will be telling me na the energy comes from the food that we eat. Tama, di ba? And yung energy na yan ay ginagamit para ma-perform ang metabolic activities. Pero paano paano nag-utilize or gumagamit ng energy para mabuhay yung ibang organisms. So say for example, this. Ayan, para sa mga plantito at plantita, I'm sure alam na alam nyo to. Some living organisms capture the light energy and convert it into chemical energy in food. So these plants and other photosynthetic organisms, when we say photosynthetic organisms, ito yung mga organisms na kayang i-process yung mga raw materials like carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight para makapag-produce sila ng glucose, or the term is yung pinakapagkain nila or food. And we call them autotrophs. So from the word auto, which means self, and trophs, which means feeder or feed to feed. So they are self-feeding organisms. So they don't rely on other organisms para makakain pa. So that's exactly the opposite, no? Nasa right side, ayan. Some living organisms, tulad natin, use chemical energy stored in the molecules obtained from food. Yung mga energy-rich molecules, of course, and then yung mga carbohydrates natin and other sources. Like just like this chameleon who eats, ano ba kinain nila? Insect, ayan. So they are insect feeders, mga chameleon. So kung ang mga plants and other photosynthetic organisms are called autotrophs, so they are called naman heterotrophs. So from the word hetero, which means other, and trophs, which means to feed or feeder. So we are called other feeder kasi we rely on other organisms. Wala ka naman nakitang tao na kaya mag-photosynthesis, di ba? Kailangan nating humanap ng source, food source para mabuhay. So that is energy and life. I hope you are having a great time. So paramdam naman kayo sa comment box. Ayan, para at least ma-acknowledge ko kayo. Ayan, we are now down on number 5, the fifth unifying theme. Ayan, so we have what we call form and function. Yung anatomy at saka morphology, di ba? Na-mention ko yung last time. Anatomy pertains to the body parts, the study of the body parts. And when we say physiology naman is the study of the function. Paano nagka-function yung mga body parts na yun. Mag-best friends yung anatomy at saka physiology. So let's start with, ayan, organism structures fit with its function. So may specific reason kung bakit ganun yung structure. Let's say for example, this one. Sa mga plant lovers, yan, like me, ayan. Alam nyo ba kung ano ang tawag dyan sa structure na yan? Yung parang spiral structure na extension ng mga leaf at saka sa stem ng mga vines, yung mga creeping na plants. We call that tendrils. At ang purpose niyan is para, yung vine kasi, di ba, they cannot support themselves. They cannot grow upright. So the tendency is mahanap sila ng mga bagging or wall or kung saan man sila pwedeng gumapang. And the tendrils, yung structure na yan, tends to coil. Magko-coil yan sa particular part para masuportahan niya yung pinaka-structure ng isang vine. Yun. That's what we call tendrils. For animals naman, I chose to have the bat as an example. So as we all know, the bat is the, ano ba ang record na hinahawakan ng bat? So they are the only flying mammals. Sila lang yung kaisa-isang mammal tulad natin na kayang lumipad. So they have the capability of flying because of their, syempre, lightweight lang sila. Tsaka meron silang parang, ayan, wing-like structure. It's a very thin membrane. Connected yung mga bones nila. Ayan. So they can fly. Ayan, mga bats. And bats also have specific structures na nagpe-perform ng function. So we also know that bats are nocturnal animals. When we say nocturnal, active lang sila pag gabi. So gabi sila nag-hunt ng food, ayan. And paano sila nag-hunt ng food kung gabi? Diba? So are you familiar with the term echolocation? Ayan, yun yung ginagamit na mechanism ng mga bats. So that's why, ayan, meron silang, small lang yung eyes nila. And as you can see, yung ears nila, bakit malaki yung ears? May function yan. So bats navigate and find insects. So may mga bats kasi iba-iba. Yung iba kumakain ng insect, yung iba kumakain ng fruits, yung iba kung nagsasuck ng blood ng ibang animals. Ayan. So for this particular example, yung mga insect eating ng the bats, they use echolocation. So ano ba yung echolocation? So pag sinabing echo, nagba-bounce back yung sound waves. Ang ginagawa nilang mga bats, they produce sound waves at frequencies above human hearing. So natin naririnig yun. They're called ultrasound. The sound waves emitted by bats bounce off to the objects in their environment. So, bounce off, doon na lang natitrace yung location ng particular objects. Yun nga, on this particular scenario, yung location ng insects. And then, ayun, anong gagawin nila? Then the sounds return to the bat's ears. Kaya nga ganun kalaki yung mga ears nila. Kasi kailangan niyang makasagap ng sound waves, which are finely tuned to recognize their own unique call. So, that's their way of hunting or looking for their prey. So, tayo mga living organisms, we have our structures and our morphology natin is may kinalaman yan kung paano nagka-function ng ating mga body parts. Ayan. So, that's number 5, form and function. Let's proceed with number 6. Ayan. So, for the 6th unifying theme is what we call reproduction and inheritance. So, himayin lang natin. When we say reproduction, it's the process wherein living organisms reproduce or give birth, di ba? Para makapag-continue ng generation nila. Or when we say naman inheritance, it is the passing off of traits, di ba? May kinalaman yan sa kung ano yung mga traits na naipapasa ng parent or parents organism sa kanilang mga magiging anak in the future. Ayan, the traits of parents are being passed from one generation to the next generation. And if you would recall, we have 2 types of reproduction. So yung unang type natin is what we call asexual reproduction. So asexual siya kasi hindi siya gumagamit or ito yung mekanismo na hindi gumagamit yung living organism ng sex cells or the gametes. Walang sperm cell or egg cell na involved. Instead, they use their body parts or specific structure para makapag-reproduce ng panibagong organism. In our example, we have unicellular organisms, yung mga basic organisms natin. Ayan. So from one, pwede siya mag-fragmentation and binary fission and all other mechanisms kung saan pwede mag-divide yung cells niya. Tapos yung dalawang organism nag-divide, mag-undergo ng cell division, makakabuo na ng panibagong organism. We also have hydras. Ito yung mga hydras na they're small, simple animals sila eh. And they thrive on fresh water. Ayan, mga maliliit. Ayan, they reproduce by means of budding. So, may parang bud na mag-grow yung maliit na structure na yan. And then eventually, it will be separated from the parent organism. Tapos, ayun na, may bagong hydra na naman. So, mako-continue yung generation. And then finally, our example sa plants, ayan. So, sweet potatoes, kamote in Filipino. So, paano ba nag-grow ang kamote? Pwede yan. Yung kamote, they grow by means of tubers, yung parang mga eyes dun sa mismong kamote. Or, yung sweet potatoes, nagtanim na kasi ako before ng sweet potatoes. So, yung pinakatalbos, ayan. So, pwede mo, di ba, kinakain lang natin doon yung leaves. Tapos yung stem na matitira doon, pwede mo yung itusok na lang sa soil, magandang klase ng soil, and you will be surprised. Ayan, so magko-continue siyang mag-grow. May tutubo na panibagong mga leaflets hanggang sa maging full-grown na siya na sweet potato. That is asexual reproduction. Kapag sinabi naman natin na sexual reproduction, it makes use of the sex cells or the gametes, so sperm cell for the males and the egg cells for the females para makapag-produce ng panibagong organism. Okay, so that is number 6, reproduction and inheritance. I hope nakakasunod tayo sa ating discussion. Check lang natin. Alright. Ayan, we proceed with unifying theme number 7, regulation. So, from the word regulate, ano ba yung kailangang i-regulate para makapag-survive tayo? So, organisms must maintain homeostasis to survive in diverse environment. So, what is homeostasis? It is the maintenance of constant internal conditions. And, of course, lahat tayo ng living organisms, we thrive to survive. Sabi nga, di ba, survival of the fittest. So, wala namang organism na ayaw mag-survive, of course. At ang environment dapat ay stable. Another key point about regulation is, ang sabi dito, cells of the body are surrounded by small amount of fluid. So, by water content talaga because water is life, di ba? And normal cell functions depend on the maintenance of the cell's fluid environment. So, nire-regulate yung temperature, yung volume, at saka yung chemical content, mga mineral content ng katawan natin. For this specific unifying theme, ang example na ibibigay ko is how the body maintains its normal body temperature. Ayan. The water level at saka yung blood sugar level. So start tayo. May mga organs tayo at saka mga glands na mamimension. So sa right side tayo mag-start. Of course, the hypothalamus, it's a gland found in our brain. It regulates the temperature and changes in the osmotic pressure. So may, as you can see, no, may mga specific organs talaga tayo na nag-regulate at saka nagko-control ng mga bodily functions natin. Another organ is, ayan, we have the pancreas, yung lapay natin. It regulates the blood sugar level. Ayan, nakaka-relate ako dyan kasi ang blood sugar level ko ay kailangan ko i-maintain kasi nga I have a history of diabetes. Ayan, so ingat-ingat. Next one, skeletal muscles contract and release heat. Ayan, yung mga skeletal muscles ay yung mga muscles na nakadikit sa ating mga bones. Next is, ayan, the blood distributes heat throughout the body. So aside from carrying oxygen and other nutrients all throughout the body, it also distributes the heat sa katawan natin. Next, of course, ang kidneys, yung mga bato natin, left and right. The kidneys maintain water balance. And tulad ng nararanasan ko ngayon, ako'y pinagpapawisan. Every time we perspire, di ba? So, pawis, tapos pupunasan mo siya. So, usually, ang pinaka effect niya natin, may cooling effect. So that's how our body regulates its internal temperature. Ayan. So evaporation of water helps regulate the body temperature. May cooling effect, di ba, after nating pagpawisan. So that's one way, one example on how regulation takes an important role para mag-survive yung mga living organisms. Ayan. Number 8 naman tayo, adaptation. From the word adapt. So very important na makapag-adapt tayo mga living organisms sa klase or sa iba't ibang klase ng environment kung saan man tayo nagtatribe or yung pinaka-habitat natin. So living organisms survive depending on how one will adapt to its changing environment. So yun kasi yung pinaka-critical dyan. Kaya bang mag-survive ng particular organism sa isang particular environment? So, gagawa ng paraan ng living organism, kumbaga natural instinct yun para mag-survive. Okay, so we have some examples here sa different biomes or different habitats, di ba? Sa desert, sobrang init. Sa mga polar areas na sobrang lamig naman, ayan. And we also have grasslands, ayan. So, the organisms need to adapt para mag-survive siya. Number 9 is evolution. So, when we say evolution, it is the change in living things over time. So, lagi kong sinasabi, di ba, sa mga previous quarters or sa mga previous sessions natin, evolution is very important. If there's a need para mag-evolve yung organism, dapat ma-perform yun. Kasi kung hindi siya makakasurvive. Yun nga, related siya, adaptability and evolution. It accounts for both the diversity and the unity of life. And also, another good thing na provide because of the process of evolution, nagkakaroon ng diversity. Why? Kasi once ang organism ay nag-evolve into another type of organism, may bagong organism na naman. So that's another additional sa diversity ng mga living organisms natin. Okay? So far, tayo mga tao, we have actually wala pa tayong capability para ma-identify lahat ng organisms. So, kumbaga, sabi nga sa mga references, a small percentage pa lang yung na-identify ng mga tao. So, ganun ka-diverse ang variety ng mga living organisms natin sa Earth. So, ang example ko dito ng evolution is yung vertebrate evolution. Parang evolve yung mga vertebrates, mga organisms na may backbone. So, mag-start sa sa fish, ayan. So, they thrive sa water, di ba? Nag-start yung buhay sa water. Sobrang dami na nila doon. Yung iba, they need to go to land para makahanap ng food. So, kaya nag-evolve yung structure ng mga limbs. So, nagkaroon ng mga amphibians. Those that can survive in water and those that can survive on land. And after ng mga amphibians, nag-evolve because of the temperature during that time. Kasi nagbabago yung, hindi pa ganun ka-stable din yung planet Earth during that time. Nag-evolve from amphibians, naging reptiles. Ayan, reptiles para, nag-relay ng eggs. They are covered with dry scales. Some of the reptiles evolved into birds and others into mammals. So, kumbaga, the environment dictates kung ano yung particular na organism na magta-thrive on a particular event sa Earth natin or sa planeta natin. And finally, ayan. So, yung unang siyam na diniscuss natin na team would not be given importance kung hindi tayo tatako sa last na unifying theme. So before that, ayan, so pinakita ko na to last time, no, yung the tree of life, kung paano naging diverse from simple organisms na nasa baba, nag-branch out para siyang puno na yumabong, nagkaroon ng diversity, nagkaroon ng different types of species sa land, sa water, at saka sa air. Of course, the last unifying theme is what we call biology and society. So, the field of science is changing the lives of all organisms through research. So, tayo mga tao, on our part, on our end, we need to study them para at least, that's one way of survival. Parang nangyayari ngayon sa COVID-19 pandemic, di ba? So, we studied that we have no choice but to survive. And to survive, kailangan makapag-produce tayo ng vaccine. So, para makapag-produce ng vaccine, kailangan pag-aralan yung mga different strains ng viruses para makapag-produce tayo ng certain kind or type ng vaccine for that. So that's a good example on how biology affects the society. Ayan, let's proceed with our activities now. Found on Module 22, page 7 and 8. So we have here diagrams. So ang role nyo lang is you need to identify anong pinapakita na unifying themes sa bawat diagram or illustration. So recall lang natin ha. So the different unifying themes are biological system, we have cell, interaction with the environment, energy and life, form and function, reproduction and inheritance, regulation, adaptation, evolution, and biology and society. So ano kaya yan? First, yan, so birds, they have the wings to fly, and tayo mga tao, we have our hands pang grasp ng things, pang hold ng things. So that shows form and function. The second one, kaya, ayan, so we have the daddy and the mommy, sperm and the egg, of course, that shows reproduction and inheritance. Let's have the third and fourth picture. So very obvious naman yung number 3 natin, no? So how the apes, the primates, di ba, evolved into humans, naging mas adapted sa environment. That is what we call, or that shows evolution. And then finally, yung fourth picture, if you're going to analyze, of course, we have the sun. It's the main source of energy. So pinoprocess yan ng mga photosynthetic organisms like plants and tayo mga animals na transfer yung energy from the food that we eat. And of course, that is energy and life. Ayan, so let's have the final assessment. Okay, so we have number 1 question. Continuity of life is explained by A, evolution, B, regulation, C, form and function, D, reproduction and inheritance. Continuity of life. Of course, what unifying theme will best describe or would best fit our statement? What do you think? So pwede kayo mag-comment ha, pahabol kayo ng comment sa ating comment section later. Or right now, why don't you try to answer our questions. So number 1, short ko na answer ha. So number 1 is D. Continuity of life is explained by, of course, reproduction and inheritance. Second question, living things are considered as such if they possess which of the following characteristics? So ano yung nagde-describe sa isang living organism? A, grow and develop. B, failure to produce offspring. C, absence of orderly structure. Or D, incapability of adapting to changing environment. So senior high school learners, di ba? Minsan sa mga ganun type of questions, may choices tayo na negative. Ayan, di ba? So negative yung dating. So of course, for number 2, the answer is A. Siya lang yung positive dyan, no? Grow and develop. Kasi yung B, C, at saka D, failure, absence, at saka incapability. And of course, as we all know, living things grow and develop. Third question. Pwede pang humabol ha. Number 3, which of the following best explains why humans sweat when they feel hot? Tama-tama sa ating condition na nararamdaman ngayon. Ayan, ability to grow ba yan? Ability to reproduce? Ability to maintain the internal environment? Or the ability to use energy? Ayan. So pwede kayong sumagot just in case, no? Sa replay na lang kayo follow sa ating session or makakapakinig at makakapanood sa ating session. Pwede kayong sumagot. And of course, number 3, the answer would be letter C. Ability to maintain the internal environment or what we call homeostasis. And final question. It is a unifying theme of life science that explains the improvement of lives of organisms through research. adaptation, inheritance, energy and life, or biology and society. So paano nakakaapekto yung mga inaaral natin na konsepto sa biology paano siya ginagamit, 'di ba? Para mas magamit natin or ma-utilize yung mga kailangan nating ma-understand in terms of the animals around us, the plants around us, and the other factors. Number 4, the best answer, of course, is letter D, biology and society. Ayun. So, we are done, almost done. And of course, our session will not be complete, tulad ng sinasabi ko, without our segment called Be Inspired and hashtag Be Inspired and hashtag Be Blessed. Ayan. So, sa mga favorite ko na pop culture icon, si Mother Teresa. So, ang sabi niya, since we talked about unity at saka diversity, di ba? And kahit complex ang buhay, we still have the option to be united. So, ang sabi ni Mother Teresa, only humility will lead us to unity. Humility is yung pagpapakumbaba, di ba? Humble lang tayo. So, only humility will lead us to unity and unity to peace. Ayan. So swak na swak yung sinabi ni Mother Teresa sa ating lesson. I hope you'll be able to share the knowledge that you have learned today in our session at saka yung mga concept natin ng unity, di ba? Let's promote unity amongst diversity. And sabi nga, di ba, sa mundo ng tawag doon, sa mundo ng pagkakaiba, so we can still find pagkakaisa. Alright? So that ends our session for Earth and Life Science, Quarter 4, Week number 2. You can reach out or you can contact me via email, sa Facebook account ko. Pwede tayong magkwentuhan dyan if we have time. And you can visit my YouTube channel, Mr. Voice Educator PH. I'll see you all next week for another discussion about life, kung paano kaganda, paano natin ma-appreciate pa ng better ang life science or yung buhay na binigay sa atin ng God. Please stay tuned because next sa Senior High School Earth and Life Science ay Media and Information Literacy courtesy of Tutor Cat. Once again, this is Tutor Tony. Ingat po palagi, stay safe, and I hope you had a great day ahead. Bye-bye po. God bless.
Sigurado ako na marami ka na namang natutuhan sa ating ETUlay tutorial session ngayong araw. Tandaan, ito ay hindi lamang para sa ating mga mag-aaral, kundi pati rin sa ating mga minamahal na guro at mga magulang na kaagapay natin para maituloy ang pagkatuto sa kabila ng nararanasang pandemya. Patuloy ding sumubaybay sa DepEd TV para sa mga araling ginawang video episodes. Mapapanood ito mula Lunes hanggang Sabado, alas 7 ng umaga hanggang alas 7 ng gabi sa inyong mga telebisyon. Abangan bukas mula 1:00 ng tanghali ang iba pang aralin sa ating ETUlay free online tutorial session sa English. I-like and subscribe at manatiling nakasubaybay sa ating ETUlay tutorial session sa DepEd Edtech Unit FB page at Educational Technology Unit channel sa YouTube at sa DepEd Tayo at DepEd Philippines social media accounts. Paalam!